Welcome back to our own Hillary Clinton, how she survived from nobody to become somebody. And here we are where the story wants to get interesting. Sit back and watch till end and learn something good here. And also, whatever that you watch, drop your comments, share and like this video. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, kindly do that now, thank you. On a cold January morning in 1993, Hillary Clinton stood beside her husband as he placed his hand on the Bible and took the oath of office. After years of strategy, sacrifice, and relentless effort, Bill Clinton had become the 42nd President of the United States. But Hillary wasn't simply stepping into the East Wing, she was stepping into history, on her own terms. From the moment she became First Lady, it was clear this would not be a ceremonial role. Gone were the days of silent smiles and decorative duties. Hillary was no stranger to scrutiny, but now, the eyes of an entire nation were fixed on her, and not all with admiration. She moved into the White House with a lawyer's mind, a reformer's spirit, and a target on her back. One of her first missions, healthcare reform. Hillary chaired the President's Task Force on National Healthcare Reform, working day and night to develop a plan to provide affordable coverage to all Americans. It was ambitious, bold, historic, and it failed. The plan was met with fierce opposition from insurance companies, lobbyists, and conservative lawmakers. The media mocked it, the public misunderstood it, and Hillary, once hailed as a trailblazer, was painted as overreaching, unelected, and unaccountable. The defeat was painful but not paralyzing. She shifted focus, worked quietly but effectively, pushed the Children's Health Insurance Program through Congress, helping millions of kids gain access to medical care, advocated for women's rights, education reform, and early childhood development, travelled the world representing the US, standing at podiums usually reserved for men in suits. In 1995, she delivered one of the most powerful speeches of her life at the United Nations Conference on Women in Beijing. Human rights are women's rights, and women's rights are human rights once and for all. Her words echoed across borders and history. But while she was rising in global esteem, trouble brewed at home. The 1990s brought scandal after scandal, some political, others deeply personal. From Whitewater to Travelgate, Hillary became a lightning rod for controversy. Her every word dissected, her every move scrutinized. Then came the storm no one could ignore. In 1998, news broke of President Clinton's affair with White House intern Monica Lewinsky. The nation gasped. The media frenzy was ruthless. Bill was impeached by the House, and Hillary's private agony became public fodder. Everyone wondered what she would do. Would she leave him? Would she speak out? Would she disappear? She did none of those things. Instead, Hillary Clinton stood firm, not because she was weak, but because she was complex. Her decision to stay was deeply personal, rooted in forgiveness, faith, and perhaps her vision of the greater good. Critics called her cold, supporters called her courageous. But Hillary never explained herself in detail. She simply kept going. That's who she was. Behind the pain, she poured herself into work, advocated harder, spoke louder. She wasn't trying to be liked anymore. She was trying to make a difference. By the end of her time in the White House, something had shifted. People began to ask not what role she played in her husband's presidency, but what role she might soon play in her own. The year was 2000, and the Clinton presidency was coming to an end. The White House that had been both a crucible and a spotlight was about to fade from their daily life. But for Hillary Clinton, this wasn't a retreat. It was a beginning. For years, she had stood beside power. Now, she was preparing to step into it. When Hillary announced her candidacy for the United States Senate seat from New York, the reaction was mixed. Some dismissed her as opportunistic. Others wondered if the former First Lady could transition from advisor to lawmaker. But Hillary, never one to be intimidated, hit the campaign trail with the same grit and detail-driven focus she'd always shown. She travelled to every corner of New York, rural towns, urban neighbourhoods, immigrant communities. She listened, learned, and showed up with plans, not just promises. Critics called her a carpetbagger. She called herself a fighter, and the people believed her. In November 2000, Hillary Rodham Clinton made history as the first First Lady ever elected to public office. She had officially become Senator Clinton, no longer a supporting character in someone else's story, but the author of her own. She entered the Senate during a turbulent time. The 9/11 attack struck less than a year into her first term, hitting New York City directly. Hillary was on the ground immediately, meeting with victims' families, emergency responders, city leaders. Her resolve never wavered. She fought for funding to rebuild, pushed for healthcare for first responders, and worked closely with Republicans despite ideological divides. In a moment of national grief, she proved she was more than a symbol. She was a public servant. Her Senate record grew steadily. She focused on veterans' benefits, education, women's healthcare, and economic development. She earned praise for her attention to detail, her policy knowledge, and her tireless work ethic. Even critics began to admit she belonged. Behind the scenes, she was preparing for something greater. Her political evolution was nearly complete. Hillary had shifted from lawyer to First Lady to senator, but the highest glass ceiling still hung overhead. Could a woman run for president? Could she? In 2007, she gave her answer. She announced her candidacy for President of the United States with these words, "I'm in, and I'm in to win." The race would be one of the most electrifying in American history. It was a crowded Democratic field, but one name rose quickly to challenge her. Barack Obama, a young senator from Illinois with charisma, vision, and a movement behind him. The battle was intense. Primary after primary, debate after debate, Hillary fought hard. She won states. She won voters. But slowly the tide began to shift. Obama's momentum became unstoppable, and in June 2008, Hillary suspended her campaign. But she didn't vanish. Instead, she stood on stage and said, "Although we weren't able to shatter that highest, hardest glass ceiling this time, it's got about 18 million cracks in it." With grace, she endorsed Obama, and with resolve, she continued forward. When he won, President Obama offered her a position few expected her to take, Secretary of State. She said yes. And just like that, Hillary Clinton was back on the world stage, not as a symbol of loss, but as an emblem of service. In the spring of 2009, Hillary Clinton stepped into the role of Secretary of State with a sense of purpose that only someone with her depth of experience could possess. The Obama administration was about to enter its first term, and Hillary, now the most prominent female figure in American politics, was tasked with one of the most important roles in government, managing U.S. foreign policy in a rapidly changing world. As Secretary of State, Hillary's influence was undeniable. She hit the ground running, traveling the globe to repair relationships frayed by the years of war in Iraq and the fallout from the 2008 financial crash. Her diplomatic efforts were wide-ranging, from engaging with China to rebuilding ties with Russia to being the lead negotiator for Middle East peace talks. She advocated tirelessly for human rights, women's empowerment, and democratic reforms, issues that had long been close to her heart. Perhaps most famously, she led the charge on the NATO intervention in Libya to remove dictator Muammar Gaddafi, a decision that would become one of the most controversial of her career. The mission succeeded in toppling Gaddafi's regime, but it left Libya in chaos and raised questions about America's involvement in international conflicts. Her approach to diplomacy was strategic, calm, and deeply pragmatic. Whether meeting with world leaders or sitting in a UN session, Hillary wielded the power of the US State Department with both patience and resolve. Yet, for all her achievements, her time in office wasn't without its critics, especially in the aftermath of the Benghazi attack in 2012. A terrorist attack on the US Embassy in Libya left 4 Americans dead, including the US ambassador. The tragedy would become a defining issue for her opponents who questioned her role in the aftermath. Despite the heat, Hillary maintained her composure. She testified before Congress multiple times and faced intense scrutiny, but never lost her focus. She insisted that the attack was a result of a spontaneous protest that spiraled out of control, an explanation that many found unsatisfactory. But Hillary was no stranger to criticism. She had always weathered storms, and this was no different. While handling her duties as Secretary of State, Hillary continued to cement her place as one of the most admired women in the world. Time magazine named her one of the 100 most influential people several years in a row, and the public's respect for her soared. But in private, she began to wrestle with the question of her own future. By 2013, Hillary had made a decision. She would not seek re-election as Secretary of State. It was time to step away. She had led the department for 4 years, and now it was time to turn the page. After leaving the State Department, Hillary took some time off, reflecting on her legacy and contemplating her next move. She travelled, gave speeches, and wrote a memoir about her time in office, titled Hard Choices. The book was widely praised for its candidness, offering a rare glimpse into the complexities of international diplomacy and the personal toll of being in the public eye. But during this time of reflection, one question remained. Could she run for president again? The answer was a resounding yes. In April 2015, after months of speculation, Hillary Clinton officially launched her second presidential campaign, this time with a clearer message. It wasn't just about breaking the glass ceiling anymore. It was about continuing to fight for the American people, for progress, and for the future. She entered the race against a diverse and crowded field of Democratic candidates, but the frontrunner was clear. Despite the rise of Senator Bernie Sanders, who pushed the party to the left, Hillary had a powerful base and an unparalleled resume. She was a seasoned politician with decades of experience, and the world had watched her grow through the years, from First Lady to Senator to Secretary of State. The race was intense. Hillary's campaign was centered around the idea of continuing the legacy of the Obama administration and building on the progress of the last 8 years. She also offered a sharp contrast to the growing movement of Donald Trump, the brash businessman turned politician who would eventually become the Republican nominee. Hillary's campaign was historic in its own right. Not only was she the first woman to earn a major party's nomination for president, but she also ran a campaign that pushed for inclusive, progressive change in areas like healthcare, climate change, education, and women's rights. She championed paid family leave, gun control, and comprehensive immigration reform. She called for a tax on the wealthiest Americans and a stronger commitment to racial justice. But Hillary's path was never without its obstacles. As the race to the nomination went on, Bernie Sanders proved to be a formidable challenger, especially among younger voters who felt the need for a more radical change in America. His messages of economic populism and social equality found traction, forcing Hillary to defend her record and clarify her vision. By the summer of 2016, Hillary had emerged as the presumptive Democratic nominee. She was poised to make history as the first woman to become President of the United States. But standing in her way was an unprecedented and unpredictable opponent, Donald Trump. The stage was set for a presidential election like no other, one that would test not only Hillary Clinton's resilience, but the fabric of American democracy itself. As the summer of 2016 unfolded, it was clear that Hillary Clinton's quest for the presidency was no longer just about winning an election. It was about reshaping the trajectory of the United States in the 21st century. With each passing day, the campaign became more than a race. It became a battle of ideals, of values, of the soul of a nation. The Democratic Party was united behind Hillary's candidacy. She had earned the nomination, despite a hard-fought battle with Bernie Sanders that had galvanized progressive wings of the party. Clinton's platform was one of unity, inclusivity, and progress, a stark contrast to the divisive rhetoric emanating from the Republican side. And then there was Donald Trump, the Republican nominee. Trump's campaign was built on shock value. He had little political experience, no traditional policy background, and a history of controversial statements and behavior that would have disqualified most other candidates. Yet, he quickly rose to the top of the Republican field, with a brand of populism that spoke directly to millions of voters who felt left behind by the system. The debates between Hillary and Trump were nothing short of historic. Clinton, seasoned and prepared, faced off against Trump, who seemed intent on stirring controversy at every turn. Hillary's policy proposals were deep and detailed, ranging from healthcare reform to climate action. But Trump often deflected with insults and jabs at her credibility, at her husband, and at the very idea of her candidacy. But through it all, Hillary remained focused. She addressed the American people with dignity and substance, making the case that the country deserved a leader who understood the complexities of the world and who could bring people together to solve the challenges of the future. As the election approached, the stakes couldn't have been higher. For Hillary, this was more than just another political campaign. It was the culmination of decades of work. She was running not only for herself, but for every woman who had fought for equal rights, for every child who deserved a better future, for every person who believed in the power of democracy and inclusion. But as the days counted down, something unexpected happened. The nation's anxieties, anger, and frustrations, fueled by years of political polarization, came to a head. Trump's campaign stoked the fears of many, while Hillary's message of unity felt, at times, too polished, too measured, too safe. On November 8, 2016, the world held its breath. When the results began to come in, it quickly became apparent that Hillary Clinton was not going to win in a landslide as many had expected. States that had once been considered solidly Democratic turned red: Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. The so-called blue wall of the Midwest crumbled, and Trump's brand of populist nationalist rhetoric had struck a chord with millions of voters. The shockwaves of the result reverberated across the globe. How could it happen? How could the most experienced, most prepared candidate in modern history lose to a man whose campaign had been built on inflammatory rhetoric and promises of change at any cost? Hillary Clinton lost the election. She received 2.9 million more votes than Trump, making it the fifth time in US history that a candidate had won the popular vote but lost the presidency due to the Electoral College. For Hillary, the loss was devastating. She had worked so hard, faced so many battles, and endured unimaginable criticism. Yet this one felt like an insurmountable defeat. It was personal. It was public. It was a blow to everything she believed about her country's ideals. In the aftermath of the election, Hillary Clinton retreated from the spotlight for a time. The defeat was brutal, not just to her but to everyone who believed in the vision she had shared for America. She had been so close to shattering the highest glass ceiling, yet fate had turned against her. But Hillary Clinton has never been someone who stays down for long. In her concession speech the day after the election, she stood before the nation, visibly shaken but unwavering, and delivered these words: "This is not the outcome we wanted or we worked so hard for, but I want you to know that I will always be with you." She also reminded her supporters, especially young women, to continue fighting for what they believed in. Never doubt that you are valuable and powerful and deserving of every chance and opportunity in the world to pursue and achieve your own dreams. Though she retreated from public life for a short while, Hillary Clinton's influence never truly waned. She wrote a best-selling memoir, What Happened, reflecting on the challenges of the campaign, the pain of the loss, and the lessons she had learned. It was a candid, powerful account, equal parts personal and political, that gave her supporters and critics alike a glimpse into the determination that had defined her career. But even as she reflected on the campaign's missteps, Hillary made it clear that she wasn't done. She continued to speak out about issues that mattered to her: women's rights, voter suppression, climate change, and racial justice. She used her voice and her platform to advocate for policies she believed in, and to support the next generation of leaders who would carry on her legacy of service. The loss in 2016 didn't define Hillary Clinton. It was just one chapter in a long life of public service. One chapter, yes, but not the final word. Though she did not break the ultimate glass ceiling in 2016, her journey was not in vain. She had shown millions of women, and men, that it was possible to reach the highest echelons of power, despite the odds. She had fought for women's rights, children's health, and global diplomacy. She had shown the world what it meant to lead with both intelligence and empathy. As time passed, Hillary remained a fixture in American political life, a symbol of resilience, grace, and an unyielding commitment to justice. She may not have achieved her ultimate dream of becoming the first female president of the United States, but her legacy was larger than any one election. It was the story of a woman who fought relentlessly for what she believed in, whether in the Senate, the State Department, or the political arena, and whose influence continues to resonate across the globe. Her story was, and still is, a story of purpose and service, of challenges and triumphs, of setbacks and the courage to rise again. Hillary Clinton's journey has never been easy, nor has it been simple. Her life, marked by both triumph and defeat, has been a testament to the power of perseverance. She may not have broken the highest glass ceiling in 2016, but her legacy is one of courage, change, and an unwavering belief in the possibility of a better future. And while her story is not yet finished, it will continue to inspire generations of women and men to follow their dreams, to stand up for what they believe in, and to never give up. The world watched as she endured with dignity, fought with determination, and led with compassion. And as we look ahead, we remember that true leadership is not just about winning, but about making a difference. And Hillary Clinton has certainly done that. If you enjoyed this update, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our future news. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. God bless you.